Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us again. Today we are going to do a little bit of ANPR. So I hope you've had requests for this, for ANPR, to know what you need to set up and those kind of things. So hopefully today everything will be a little bit more clear. So let's start with the ANPR. Okay, let me let that laser pointer there. All right. So there's a couple of things that we need to look out for, things to identify when we're going to need it on a site and so forth. Solution introduction, camera categories. So we've got a few different cameras there that can do the job, just depends on where and what you want to use it for. And then we're also going to compare a few products there. All right, first of all, the requirement analysis. So ANPR stands for Automatic Number Plate Recognition, or the other term for it is LPR, License Plate Recognition. It's all the same thing. Basically potato, depending on who's who and who chooses what abbreviation. But basically, ANPR is there to record number plates as they go past your cameras. You might have a database of number plates a list of number plates in the database to control gates and those kind of things. But one of the scenarios, one of the applications is like this. So if there's a closed region, especially for private regions, usually managers want to manage all vehicles strictly to maintain the order in regions, meaning that they want to allow or disallow certain vehicles into an area. Therefore, an ANPR system which can record vehicle number plates smartly and accurately is required so that we can check those vehicles. And like I said, we can control who goes into the premises and who not. But now we face some problems, especially if it's a 24 hours type of system. We monitor at nighttime as well. Things like strong headlights, dark environments might hamper this whole issue. So this whole system. So we need to make sure that we can actually, or the equipment can actually work in those scenarios. All right, another one, vehicle access control. So in the private region, only vehicles in the whitelist are allowed to access. So this again is basically control or access control of vehicles into an area and so on. An ANPR-based system control, ANPR-based access control system can meet the requirements perfectly. So we can then again put number plates into a database and monitor and open up booms, those kind of things, automate access for certain vehicles into and out of a specific area. Right, and then another way is closed regions. So this could be estates, business parks, those kind of things. Again, a little bit of control of vehicles, but also monitoring other things. All right, so generally property managers will set some rules in closed regions like industry parks, factory zones, schools, residential communities, like estates, etc. In order to maintain order of closed regions like industry parks, factory zones, and so forth, some methods are needed by managers, such as vehicle converse detection and blacklist alarming. So if there's a vehicle that's unwanted in the area, we need to get notifications on this, so we can do that as well. Right, then we have a double checking system. So double checking with access control. So with a proper access control system and number plate, we do a double check there and then only allow. So we need to make sure that the right driver is driving the right car, and therefore only if that is met, those cases are met, then we can allow them to go through the booms or the gates. All right, so we're going to explain all these applications and scenarios as we go through the PowerPoint, through the presentation. All right, so for the solution introduction, just to quickly go over this. So here we've got your ANPR camera. We've got a swing gate barrier of some kind, could be a gate, a boom, whatever kind. Induction coil or some kind of a triggering device to tell the camera, listen, there's a vehicle now, check the number plate, and then control the boom the way that it should be. Right, otherwise, you can just go for your normal ANPR cameras in your general street surveillance and so forth. Or we can do the double checking where we can combine the ANPR camera with a face terminal to get facial recognition access, plus the number plate must match, and then only control of the boom or the gate will be allowed. So all of these cameras, all these systems can then talk back to back-end systems. So your Hikconnect, obviously your smartphone, your application, your Hikconnect app on your iOS or Android phone, Hik Central, iSeries, NVR. So there's a bunch of different things that this can talk back to. For maybe back-end system, for notification purposes or for other secondary control purposes. All right, so the first one, ANPR with barrier and detectors. So this is your triggering device, could be a coil, could be beams or something like that. That'll trigger the camera to tell the camera, listen, there's a vehicle now. The vehicle will do the number plate recognition of the vehicle and then directly control the barrier gate. This information will then be sent back to the NVR, and then possibly if you have a back-end control system, control room or something like that. Right, so this is a very simple way of doing things where the database sits on the camera itself, and these cameras can do up to about 10,000 number plates in the camera itself, and then control the booms whether they, the way that they should. Send the information back for recording purposes and for possible off-site monitoring purposes. Another one, road surveillance. So in your streets and so forth, you're going to have multiple cameras. These multiple cameras are then talking back to a back-end system. So through some kind of a network, it doesn't have to be a wired network, it can be wireless as well, and so forth. But there you've got a large quantity of ANPR cameras. So then you would control the database through your back-end system. So then you'll use the cameras just to purely do the number plate recognition, and then send that information back to your backend system for notification purposes. And there you can have multiple lists, whitelist and blacklist for the cameras for the system to alert the control room of the said vehicle. All right, another one for your road surveillance. So that'll typically be an installation that's been happening in and around Joburg or Gauteng. But yeah, there's multiple different ways of installing these type of cameras. All right, now the other one with video access control terminal. So what we've done here is we've got our ANPR camera that will be talking to the access control terminal via a Wiegand interface. So that is 2 sets of wiring that you're going to need from the camera. So a network cable to go back to your platform, your backend system, and a Wiegand hardwired connection back to the terminal. So the double check basically works like this. ANPR camera recognizes the number plate and sends that information via that Wiegand signal to the terminal. Then the person would scan their face, their card number, or something like that, depending on which terminal you've got. And then the IP terminal compares the card number with the driver's card, all right? So the card or face, whatever, has been scanned. And then the IP terminal sends a signal back to the ANPR camera. This is via the network cable over here, to open up the barrier. So we're going to use the output relay trigger to trigger the boom then, if you'd like. So just in a nutshell again, just to revise, so camera detects the number plate, sends it via the Wiegand cable to the terminal. The terminal verifies that number as well as a person's face or card or finger that he wants to scan there, authenticates, and then once it authenticates, sends a signal back to the ANPR camera to do the triggering of the boom. So that's a good double checking, making sure that the driver and the number plate matches. Right, so just a quick overview of the different kinds of ANPR cameras. So we've got the older 4 series camera, that was the first generation ANPR camera that we had. Then we've got the second generation 7 series ANPR cameras. We've also built in ANPR into PDZs. So if you've got longer distances and so forth that you need to detect number plates. And then we have a 7 series binocular ANPR camera. All right, let's quickly have a look at that. All right, so the first generation looks like this, looks like an ordinary bullet, outdoor bullet type of camera. It was great. It did very good license plate recognition. The problem was that it would also detect some signage, maybe on vehicles, signage on signage boards, and things like that. So it's difficult for this camera to determine whether it's a vehicle or not, and then you possibly get a lot of, let's call it, false alarms and so forth. All right, they still work very well. So there's just things like this you need to look out for, so that you don't detect those things, you don't see those things in the view of the camera. So there's also a place where you can get the firmware for this. Remember that the ANPR cameras is very region specific, so we need to make sure that we do have the correct firmware on the devices for South African number plates, etc., that's been obviously optimized for South African number plates, etc. So you need to make sure that you get the right firmware version, and the firmware version is available on our support FTP. This is the URL, so if you want to quickly grab this, it's fine. Otherwise, just contact us and we can get you the location of where to download the correct firmware version for that. All right, so why the second series ANPR camera, the 7 series? What we've done with the 7 series, we built a little bit of AI into this camera, which makes it much more effective. So the efficiency went up because it's got the AI, and I'm going to tell you what the AI basically does now to help with ANPR systems. All right, so there is a dual mode option. So the dual mode option to capture and recognize license plates accurately in different scenes, but I'm going to tell you exactly what the dual mode does. High performance, we've upgraded the hardware on these cameras a little bit. So it does it a little bit more accurate, a little bit faster, a little bit better. And then we can also do analysis, vehicle attributes, and so forth. So we can do more with these cameras nowadays than what we could have done with a 4 Series camera previously. All right, so we spoke of signage and those kind of things. So signage on vehicles, maybe boards next to it, stripes and repeating patterns and so forth was normally a problem for the 4 Series camera, but the 5 Series camera does not care about these things anymore, because what it does, it uses deep learning algorithms to make sure that it sees a vehicle first. Right, and that's the dual modes that we were talking about earlier. So there's 2 modes to set this camera up. So you get vehicle priority. So it recognizes the license plates after it detects a vehicle. So in these circumstances here, it sees, but hold on, there's no vehicle there, do not do any recognition, and the same for that, and the same for that. So it knows what a vehicle and a motorcycle looks like, and then once it finds that vehicle or motorcycle, then it knows to look for a number plate, right? So it makes it much more accurate, but you also have the other options, second mode, license plate and vehicle, so it detects license plates and vehicles at the same time. Right, so again, it helps, especially at nighttime. These cameras are optimized, so they are looking quite dark at nighttime, so it might look like they're off, but in actual fact, they are on. They're optimized for headlights and number plate reflections and so forth, so the image is quite dark. And sometimes at night, it is difficult to see the vehicle first before it does try to find the number plate itself. So it's up to you, whichever option you choose, first or second product, first or second mode over here. Sorry, let me go one more back. Once it does find a vehicle, and it does not see a number plate, this camera also reports it as no plate. So it still does a capture. And then at least the number plate result, if it doesn't find a number plate on a vehicle specifically, it'll return a no plate result. But at least you know that there was a vehicle that actually passed the camera at that time. All right, so the second generation ANPR camera, the 7 Series, you can also quickly search for number plates and attributes, all right? So there's certain things, vehicle colors and those kind of things you can also search for. So if you know there's a specific vehicle, specific colors, those kind of things that went past, or specific type of vehicle, like you see the vehicle type there, large bus and so forth, you can do a little bit more refining searches with these cameras now because of the intelligence that's built in. So it makes life a little bit easier to find a specific number plate. All right, PDZ ANPR cameras. Now, the bullet cameras, like we saw them, have got the maximum distance of about 35 meters on the 80-32mm lens, about 35 meters where it does recognition. Anything further than that is not guaranteed to get a number plate recognition done. So distance is a problem. So if you want to have further distances than about 35 or 40 meters or so, then we would recommend a PDZ ANPR camera. Our PDZ ANPR camera looks like a normal PDZ, but it's got the ANPR engine built in, which makes it unobtrusive as well, because people don't know that it's an ANPR camera, and so on. So anyway, so you can go for further distances and still detect number plates correctly. All right, so there's just the 2 that we want to mention over here. There's actually a few more, but you'll see that we've upgraded the cameras as well, but we kept the price the same. So the newer ones, you can see the price is the same as the previous model, but it's got the ANPR functionality built in. I'm not going to go through all the settings and all the features and so forth. The nice thing is we've got massive zooms on these cameras as well. So 45 times optical zoom, dark fighter technology, obviously. So dark fighter technology so that it can see better at nighttime, and obviously you can see the ANPR functionality built in there. Also face capturing and a few other features, but today we're focusing on the ANPR side. All right, so you can see a couple of old models, a couple of new models. So if you're interested in the model numbers themselves, you can quickly take them down, take a photograph quickly or a print screen to get them. Otherwise, again, just contact us afterwards if you're interested in a PTZ ANPR camera, and we'll make sure that you get the right one for your application. So different resolutions for obviously different applications, and obviously different lens zoom capabilities for your different applications as well. All right, so key improvements. You can see that we've upgraded the older models, the 25 and 36 models, 25 and 36 times zoom models up to 42 times zoom now. So we've got to bring you a much larger zoom capability in these cameras. And you can see the zoom ratio, the optical zoom ratio is determined by the model number. So those two characters in the model number will determine the zoom ratio. So maybe while we add this on the screen, just to quickly give you an idea of what our model numbering does or what it means. DS means it's a Hikvision camera. -2, it's a Hikvision front end, so Hikvision camera actually, so Hikvision product DS, and the DS-2 is a Hikvision camera. DF is your dome, and the F is the Pro Series dome. The 8 is the physical size of the dome, so you can see we go from 6, 7, 6, 8, 5s, and so on. So it's the physical size of the dome. The next character is the resolution. So you can see this guy is a 2 megapixel, that one's a 4 megapixel, and so forth. And then the next two characters is basically your optical zoom ratio. So that's what I wanted to point out there. So by looking at the model number, you can see the optical zoom ratio stipulated in the model number. It's easier to recognize them later. All right, so a few more upgrades that we've had on the PTZ ANPR cameras. The DF series, so the DF series does the ANPR, not all of them, just specific models. But what we've done, apart from the larger zoom that they've got built in now, we also upgraded the IR, which used to be between 200 and 250 meters IR. They're now upgraded to 400 and 500 meter IR distances. So also the IR will help a lot for perimeter detections and so forth, but we're also going to use them for number plate recognition. All right, the 7 series binocular ANPR camera. So what we've got here, it looks like this. So this is a new series camera. We also have 8 series cameras that looks very similar to this, but this is a 7 series binocular ANPR camera. Now, what do we mean with binocular? Is that we have 2 lenses built into the camera. So you can see at the bottom, we've got a wide angle lens there that covers a big wide area. And then this lens here is a little bit more narrow, so more zoomed in and so forth. So we have this in a 4 megapixel below and 4 megapixel on top. So basically 8 megapixels coming from this camera. So 4 megapixels for your wide area and another 4 megapixel for the, let's call it the ANPR camera part. All right, why do we need this? We're going to save you cost this way, right? This is, again, it's 2 cameras in one. You need 1 IP address for this, 1 point of installation, but you get 2 kinds of views from this. So the one will cover a wide area, telling the camera that there's a vehicle approaching or something like that, and we can get the number plate recognition by the top camera over there. So it saves you a lot of cost on installation, cabling-wise, ports, channels, and all those kind of things. And obviously maintenance will be cheaper because now 1 point of installation. All right, so that's a 7 series binocular ANPR camera. Very, very good and nice to use. All right, a bit of a product comparison there. So product comparison, 2nd generation 7 series ANPR versus the 1st generation 7 series ANPR camera. So both 7 series, so what is the difference between the two? The difference is basically this. All right, so you can see, first of all, with the model number, DS versus IDS. All right, so the IDS means it's got more intelligent features built in, so deep learning in this camera. The rest is basically the same, so 2CD7826G04/P, 2CD7826G0/P. So the main difference there in the model number is the I in front. All right, so what does that do? What does that mean? Deep learning built into both. All right, so both 7 series, because 7 series already had deep learning built in. So deep learning built into them, but this newer one has got the dual modes. where you can choose between vehicle first and then number plate, or vehicle and number plate at the same time. The newer one also has higher and better performance than the previous one. The newer one can also do a little bit more vehicle attributes analysis, so vehicle color and those kind of things, vehicle types and so on. And then the rest is basically the same. So the main differences are these red ones over here. The dual modes, a higher performance, as well as more vehicle attributes, which makes it much more easy to find a specific vehicle if you need to do research or maybe investigation to try and find a specific vehicle. All right. Now you know the difference between the two generations of the 7 Series ANPR cameras. Right, so that concludes it for ANPR. It's a very short, informative session. Let me just quickly have a look and see. Give me a second. All right, so yeah, Damon is unfortunately in China at the moment, so we cannot do an operation part of this presentation. But the ANPR operation or the ANPR configuration is quite simple. Couple of things that you need to remember about ANPR is to stick to your 30-degree installations. All right, so 30 degrees horizontally and vertically. So there where your number plate camera is installed, towards the number plate of the vehicle itself cannot be more than 30 degrees. So you don't want to have more than 30 degrees horizontally or vertically towards the number plate itself. So stick within your 30 degrees. That is your golden rule for ANPR. So you can go less than 30, but don't go more than 30 degrees. And then we have for the normal 7 Series and even the second generation 7 Series ANPR cameras, we've got 2 lens modules. The first one is a 2.8 to 12 millimeter lens, and the second one is an 8 to 32. Now, a big misconception when it comes to these cameras is that the 2.8 to 12 have got a 50-meter IR built in. That does not mean that it can do vehicle or number plate recognition on 50 meters, right? So please don't take the IR distance as a recognition distance, all right? So just a quick rule of thumb when it comes to the 2.8 to 12 and the 8 to 32, the 2.8 to 12 is used for boom gates and other things like that. Keep some kind of a barrier where your vehicles will come close to the camera, slow down, and then do the recognition. So it's meant for short distances, all right? So that camera will do anything from about, I would say about 2.5 to about 11 meters or so will do a recognition of the number plates. That's where your distances should be. Then if we look at the 8 to 32 mil version, the 8 to 32 mil version has got a 100 meter IR built in. All right, so let me just see. I think I've got a slide on those cameras with the lenses. Let me just quickly show you. Sorry, going back a little bit. Okay, it doesn't really show which lens is which. Okay, not a problem. Anyway, so the 7826, it comes in 2 lenses, 2.8 to 12 with a 50 meter IR, but maximum vehicle recognition and number plate recognition, sorry, about 11 to 12 meters or so maximum distance. And the 8 to 32 mil lens have got a 100 meter IR built in. Now, the 100 meter IR does not really mean that you can do recognition at 100 meters. It does about maximum, I would say, about 35 meters away from the camera. All right, so it's very close to your zoom ratio, if you understand. So 8 to 32 millimeters, 32 millimeters, very close to 35 meters. So roughly between 30 and 35 meters. Also depends on the application and the scenario where you install it, but those are the maximum distances that you want to look at for these cameras. Right, if you want larger than that, you're going to have to look at the PDZ ANPR cameras. That'll get you the distance. Now, another thing that I mentioned is the 30 degrees. It's very, very important when it comes to installing these cameras for sales and technical guys. All right, the sales guys needs to, when you do your quotes and stuff, you need to obviously go do your site inspection and make sure that you do have a position to put this camera that will make sure that you stick within these distances and obviously the degrees, the 30 degrees. So very sure about that before you do quote. Otherwise, you're going to have to make some modified brackets or something like that to get within these distances and specs. All right. Then the other thing for technical is to set it up in those distances and also the height of these cameras. So these 2 cameras, you want to install at a minimum of 1.5 meters. Do not put them on the boom motor, the boom box that controls the boom and so forth. It is too low. It needs at least a 1.5 meter height, up to, I would say, about 4.5 meters high. All right, so for these bullets, I wouldn't go higher than that, but between 1.5 and let's call it 3.5, 4 meters, 4.5 or so should be good, but not higher than that. But nothing lower than 1.5 meters. So if you go higher than 4.5 meters high, then you'll see that you'll then go over the 30-degree restriction. If you look at the vehicle number plate distance away from the camera, and that's why we say stick to these distances. You cannot really go wrong then. Okay, so I hope that was helpful. The other thing is with the box type camera, we also have this in a housing. So the box type with a housing, also with IR, similar IR distances and so forth, but the lenses are slightly different. I think the longest lens on this one is 11 to 40 millimeters, sorry, which will obviously go a little bit further than this guy over here. But I would say nothing more than about 45 meters away where your number plate should be. But the same other statistics or other specs goes where you need to stick within your 30 degrees. That's probably the most important thing when it comes to ANPR. If you go over 30 degrees, then it means that the font to the camera's view changes so much on the number plate that it makes it not recognizable. So the characters will move closer to each other the more angle you've got on the number plate, and the font sizes and those kind of things also plays a big role then. So please stick within these specifications, and you'll have very high success rates on these cameras. All right, so I think that is what I wanted to mention today. I hope that I informed you with a few little things there, maybe some things that you were struggling on site with, or maybe an application where you needed to quote these things, but you were unsure what to quote for these sites. So I hope you enjoyed it today. Next week, we've got a TBA topic. So the topic will still be announced probably early next week. So next week we'll do the same time, same place, 9 o'clock, same Zoom ID for the next topic. So I hope to see you there, and good luck for the weekend, and hope you enjoy it. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to check and see if there's any questions, and then if there's any questions, I will quickly answer them. So I'll keep the Zoom open for a few more minutes to see if I can answer any questions. So if you have questions, please pop them in the Q&A box, and we'll chat to you soon again. Thanks, guys. Cheers. Okay, one more thing. I've had a question for the presentation. So the presentation, what we do these days is we set it up, we upload it to YouTube. So all the previous presentations have been recorded and sent to YouTube. If you don't have the link, please send me a mail. Then I will make sure that you do get the link for the YouTube channel. And then you'll be able to find all the previous recordings there as well. Let me quickly put it in the chat box. I will put my email address in there. If you have the need and you want to have the link and you don't have the link, or whatever the case might be, just pop me a mail and I will gladly send it to you.